I'm just so shocked by the 40 to 50. Like, we've just been brainwashed to say that we need two incomes, and we don't.
The amount of people don't realize how much of what they think is true is fed to them through propaganda. It's so much, especially that's why I wrote the book, the Occult Feminism book, and I've got 2 more books coming out this year, because people really just don't know. They don't know the history of how we got here and why we believe these things. So like compulsory public education is only 150 years old. It's the new weird thing. Homeschooling and other forms of education were the norm for all of history. Medicalized hospital births are the new thing. That only started in the 1950s. Prior to that, 95% of people born were born at home. Women in the workforce is only 50 years old. Prior to that, the world somehow functioned without women in the workforce just fine. And that's also these are new things. The way that we're living right now is new, and it's a result of propaganda and different think tanks and foundations who create these messages and then put them out into the public sphere to convince people that this is how it should be, and that if you're doing something else, you're weird, you're in the out group, you're the bizarre person, you're the weirdo. But if you just kind of take a broad look at history, it's like, no, I mean, we didn't do things this way until really recently.
Wow. And I was thinking, like, because I grew up like traveling around the world. Like I went to Japan when I was like 12. We went to India. We went all over. And with homeschooling, you can actually like show your kids the cultures you're learning about in school.
Yeah.
As a family. Yeah. Like that would be so cool.
We're going to go stay with my dad out in Arizona for the winter, because Michigan winters are brutal. So we're going to probably go there for a couple of months in the winter. And it's fine because everything I'm doing, I can do remotely. There's school. We can just do it while we're out there. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you can still keep up on your school and fit it in.
And you can spend more time with your family.
It puts the family in control. You know, that's one of the things I like best about it. So if the kids are playing a game with dad and they're having like the best time and they're laughing and they're just like making memories and enjoying themselves, and it's like 10 p.m., I'm like, I'll let them stay up a little. You know, I'm going to let them stay up and spend time with their dad and enjoy things. And if we start homeschool an hour later tomorrow, who cares? Nobody cares. It affects nothing. Whereas if they're in public school, you're a slave to whatever the public school schedule is, and you don't have a choice about it. And then, you know, if your kid, I had a child that got chronically ill and missed like 2 months of school, and it was not her fault. It was not our fault. And she was like heavily penalized by the public school system, and they were going to have her do a grade over. And that's actually how I started homeschooling, because I was like, oh no, I will catch her up myself. If they're not going to help me and they're not going to help her, I'll just do it myself. And then I was like, wow, this is way better than I thought.
Can I tell you a homeschool story I think you would find funny? Or not a homeschool, a public, or my parents versus school. So yeah, we always had issues with schools, you know, because again, my parents are entrepreneurs. And when you have an entrepreneur point of view, you just don't like rules. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't like structure. Like,
do what works.
Right. And my parents always felt like they knew me. Like, I was a pretty tame kid. Right. I really didn't. I think I drank. The first time I drank was like my senior year of high school at the end of it. You know, I wasn't in the parties. If there were any, I wasn't invited. Shocking, I know. For most of high school, right? You know, so still a teenager, right? But my mom knew I was responsible enough to, like, again, go to school when I wanted to. And this might sound crazy to other people, right? Like, you could ditch school and not be crazy. No, I was just sleeping. And I could catch up on it later, right? Like, I was just okay. I was never an A student, but I was good enough. My mom, B's were okay. C's were bad. A's were like, you know, my mom was just like, A's and B's good enough. I could do that. Now, what happened was I went to Florida with my family, and this was one of my favorite family vacations. We went to Florida for 2 weeks. I didn't know that you're not allowed to miss 2 weeks of school just because your parents want you to. I didn't know this. And so I didn't know my mom told them that I was sick. So I came back and I'm in class and I'm showing everyone pics from vacation.
Oh no.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm sitting there like, yeah, this was so fun. Now my English teacher already didn't like me. Now she was so mad because she was just one of those control freak, like typical English teacher, you know, and I like English, but let's just call a spade, right? Now,
Yeah.
So she's pissed, right? Because I had been missing her class all year because she was my second period. So I would always miss, I had to get in before third period to practice. So I would just always miss first and second. But I still had like a B plus in her class. I had like and we were in Catholic school. So that's like an 89, 88. That's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like for never showing up, you know? So this would enrage her. This would enrage her because I would just show up halfway through it and whatever. And you know, but I would still do good. And I made up everything I missed and I did really well. But she went to the school and told them to give me a 0 for everything I missed. Because she got the pictures off of social media. Like this crazy lady. Why does she care? And long story short, my parents, now here's the thing. I'll tell you one thing about growing up in a wealthy family. We can threaten to sue you. Yeah. Yeah, and you actually have to be scared because now, are they looking to do that? Do they really want to do that, Rachel? No. But you're telling my mom what she can and can't do with her child. How is that? How does the state get to tell my mom, who pays extra money for Catholic school? They get to say, you can't take your kid on a family vacation to Florida, even if she has a B plus in the class, which my family deems as acceptable. I know some parents, A plus only. I was an AB, occasionally C student. My mom said that was good enough. If my mom says it's good enough, why is it not good enough? Yeah. And so, yeah, like in long story short, this woman who is not my mother pulls me aside and tells me, you are never going to be successful in college. Well, you are never going to be able to get away with this. You will fail at everything you do in life. Like this woman gave me this whole speech. I graduated with 2 majors. No, I went to college. I graduated with 2 majors, 3 varsity letters. Like I now, you know, I succeeded in all the things she said. And so I'm just like, why is this crazy lady so bent out of shit? She had her own kids. I'm like, don't worry about.
You know why? I know something. I know why she was like that. So the reason, and it is an English teacher thing, because I had one that was exactly the same way like that, where it was like, oh, you missed a few days in class. Because the Prussian model of education was based on, do you remember Pavlov and Pavlov's dogs?
Yeah.
How the bell would ring, the dogs would drool because they learned to associate it with food. The Pavlovian research of how to condition people to follow rules is what the Prussian model was based on. And so when they're training when they're training teachers and the National Education Board is training them, that's why everything is about attendance. And, you know, you have classes that start at like 7:55 or 7:46 or some random weird number, and then you have a bell between every class, and you have a lunch bell and all these sort of things, and they base everything on attendance and rule following, is because the whole model is based on getting everybody to conform and follow orders and be good little obedient worker bees and government drones. It's there to teach you to be a cog in the wheel. They don't teach you critical thinking, independent thinking. They don't teach you how to teach yourself or anything like that, because the model doesn't reward that on purpose. And so your teacher was trained with this mindset of, this is what you have to do. And I heard that all the time growing up too, is like, you need to go to school to learn how to get up on time and be somewhere on time. And I was like, what? I have to go to school for 12 years so I can learn how to get up and go somewhere on time? And I was the same as you. I always missed. I was notorious for missing first and second hour.
Yeah.
And I had to make up 34 hours of missed school my senior year to graduate, and I still got a 3.2.
We deem that as good enough. That's what my mom said. Above a 3.0, good enough. Why do I need a 4.0?
When I was a freshman, I had a 4.02. And I was like, I don't understand. it's not like I'm going to be more successful with one versus the other. And it didn't turn out to be that way. So it's also arbitrary. And I figured that out when I was pretty young. And then when my kids got into school, they were doing the same stuff to me that they were doing with your parents, where I was just like, okay, how about you just butt out and I'll just do it myself then? Because it felt so inefficient and so insane. And I didn't like the way anything was being done. So I was like, I'll just do it myself. And it was one of the best things we ever did, I think. So
and it's
I tell people to go for it. If you absolutely hate it and you try for 2 years and you absolutely can't make it work, the public school is still going to be there. So just give it a shot. That's what I would say.
How do you know your kids are like learning quick enough?
Because you just pick up on things. Like, well, mine have like a huge vocabulary, so that was one thing. Just hearing how they talk, you know what I mean? They're using like language at a higher level than all of their peers. And then as we're doing work, or as we're doing like an assessment at the beginning or end of the year, I can see kind of where their weak spots are and where they might need more. And then when they're like where they're like way ahead. So I mean, you're with them all day. So you know them really well. And that's the other thing I like too, because when my teenagers were going through stuff like teenagers do, I feel like if I had been at work all day, I wouldn't have noticed things. But because I was home and spending a lot of time with them, like I noticed when something, they didn't have to tell me specifically, but I'd be like, what's going on with you? Like something's off. And then they would be able to talk to me about it. So,
well, and I started to notice, I'm like, we kind of outsource families. Like even they have a therapist in school. Now, me, I was a little, God, I hated school. Like I just, I'm just a creative. I just don't think creatives do well in the school environment. But they would have these therapists there to tell, like, why does the school need to know what your problems at home are? What?
Oh, I had the school tell me once when my oldest daughter was little that when she is at the school, she is the property of the state. Because they did bring her into like a counselor's office there was like a fight that went on or something that she had seen, and they brought her into the counselor's office and they were asking her things about our house, like that I was like, that had nothing to do with what happened. Why were you doing that? Are you even allowed to do that? And they were like, well, when your child is here, technically she's a ward of the state and we can do what we want.
Well, even looking back, like the other issue you get with all these people interacting with your kids is you don't know what they're saying to them. And I don't know if you've ever had this hindsight 2020 of like, you get a little older and you look back at some conversations you had with adults and you're thinking, why did they speak to me about that? Like there was one adult, oh my gosh, she was one of my nannies. Cause I did grow up, I had 9 siblings and we were all in sports. So we did spend a lot of time around nannies, which I really actually don't recommend. You know, I don't try to like put that, cause my parents, like they did the best they could, but I just wouldn't recommend that, to be honest. Cause I was thinking of this one nanny that we had. And I remember telling her that I liked princesses in like some story or something. And she was like, well, maybe you like princesses more than princes. Like, how do you know you don't like? Yeah. And I was like, if she kept pushing that, like she did it was just like one conversation I remember. I'm like, I might have thought, because I was a tomboy, so I'm like, maybe I would have thought I was gay or something. If they keep, like, because you're so impressionable as a kid. And I'm like, you don't know. Or I had another, like a coach that he said some like kind of weird. And it's just like in hindsight, like, you don't know what these people are saying to your kids. And even one of my sisters, like it was like her horseback riding coach was like this hippie lady. And, you know, she kind of put some like feminist ideas in my sister. And now my sister, who is probably the most nurturing, the most natural, like a mother, like my one sister's just, she was bad at sports. So she just spent more time at home than any of us. And she like used to love babies, and now she's coming back, I don't want to have kids. I'm like, what? You? But it's like, it's because all these outside forces like are influencing your kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, this is a system. The public education system is a system. The teachers are trained in university. The universities have people as professors who are chosen and selected because they're going to follow the certain narrative, right? That's how professors are chosen, through fellowships. I have a piece on my Substack about institutional capture and how this happens. How do we get all of the universities with these liberal Marxist indoctrinators? And it's because they're hand chosen by the people where all the funding comes from, because they know they're going to follow a certain narrative. So if you are like a feminist biased professor and they like what your thesis was on or whatever, they give you grants, they give you fellowships, they place you in a university as a professor. So all of the feminist propaganda and other types of propaganda, all of the liberal Marxist stuff that's in universities, it gets taught to teachers, and then teachers teach it to their kids. And almost every public school teacher I've ever met is this way. And they think that it's their job to teach people's kids about, like, you know, climate change or social justice or women's, you know, rights and how you should. Right. So if I were saying to my daughter, because I would say to my daughters, if somebody asks you what you want to be and your answer is a mom, that is okay. Not only is it okay, it's cool. Because when I was a kid, that wasn't an acceptable answer. If somebody said, what do you want to be when you grow up, little girl? It was like the 80s and 90s. And I was expected to say, I want to be a CEO, or I want to be Beyonce, or I want to be She-Ra, or a boss babe of some kind. If I said, I want to be a mom, they'd be like, that's not a job. You have to choose a career, you know? And I would tell my girls, if that's what you want to do, that is fine. And don't let anybody tell you that you're a loser if you don't have a degree in a career and you want to raise the next generation, because that's super important. But public school teachers would probably hear my daughter say that and try to counter what I'm saying and give them a different messaging of, well, but you want to be able to make sure you can support yourself if your husband leaves, don't you? And don't you want to make sure that you have your own money? And what if this and what if that? And they'll fearmonger them to death about how they must do things this way because this is the agenda and this is the narrative, right? So you have no control over that when your kids are in public school. And we all know the indoctrination. We know about, like, the what's the curriculum they try to teach them about? Critical theory, like critical race theory and that kind of stuff that they're pushing in schools. So I just didn't want them basically being brainwashed by the state, is kind of how I look at it. Yeah.
You've convinced me I'm like, when I have kids, I'm going to homeschool. You've officially convinced me when you said 2 to 3 hours a day. I'm like, that gives you so much more freedom.
Yeah, it gives you tons of freedom. And they also get to be kids, which I love. They get to be outside. None of my kids are like overweight or unhealthy because they're eating food, real food that I'm cooking them. They're playing outside all day. They're getting lots of sunshine, lots of fresh air, lots of exercise. They're not stuck and being forced to just sit. And then if they can't just sit for 7 hours a day and pay attention, they're being given pills to try to make them pay attention. Another weird thing they've introduced, that this came out of China. It's like a Chinese model for basically mind control. It's called social emotional learning, where they monitor everything about the kid, and they have like lots of new tech, like smart boards came out of this. And now they have technology that can read the kids' eye movements and all different kinds of things, so that if they're not paying attention at certain parts of the lesson or something, it will tell the teacher this. And then it will send like a report to the parents saying, oh, Johnny paid attention pretty well for the first half of the day, but in the second half of the day, he's really struggling and his mind is wandering during English. And like, it's a whole other control grid now. So it's getting worse. It's not getting any better. It's, if anything, with technology and surveillance, it's getting worse, where they're just gonna start trying to control the complete and total development of your kid's mind from like infancy forward. It's nuts.
Well, and oh gosh, it's giving me like flashbacks to how much I hated school. God, I hated school. Like, no, because I'm just someone, I cannot learn unless I do it.
Yeah.
Like I have to do it. And so I would get so, oh my gosh, I remember like crying to my dad. Like I remember like crying because my dad is like really, really smart. And I remember crying, being like, Dad, especially because I was a year young in school. So everyone in my grades was a year older than me, which, okay, it doesn't seem like that's that big of a deal and you might relate. But like when you're younger, it's like a really big difference in just like social maturity. You catch up around like seventh-ish grade, eighth.
Yeah.
But before then, it's like if you're 25% or like 10% younger than all your siblings, or not your siblings, your classmates, you just don't really fit in. So I remember like crying to my dad and being like, "Oh, I'm so stupid, Dad." And my dad just, yeah. And my dad just sat me down and he's like, "You're going to be smarter than all of these kids because they're like, and I promise you, like I was in a class with this many people and I'm way more successful than all of them because they don't know how to think. And I'm going to like teach you how to think." And he's like, and it doesn't, and he's like, hard work is always going to beat smarts in the long run. Like they might win in the short run, but you are always going to win in the long run because you work hard. And he's like, and he was like, you can't teach that.
Right. That is good job, Pearl's dad. You're awesome. I love that because it's so true. And the kids who are successful at public school are successful because they are good at following directions, taking orders, warming a seat with their ass, and showing up on time. That's what they're good at. They are not going to be taking initiative. They're not going to be dynamic problem solvers in the workplace. They're not going to be the kind of people who can work on their own without direction. They're going to be followers. They're going to be little cogs, little bots that are good at following directions and things like that.
And you come out with no like life skills, to be honest. Like, and I'll say this, like coming out of it, like there's a lot of stuff I've had to learn in the last like couple of years, and like cooking is honestly one of them, which seems so simple, but it's like, when would I have had time? I got out of school at 3. I then waited an hour to go to practice, and then like 4 to 6 I was playing basketball, and then I drove an hour to volleyball, and then it was like 7 to 10 at night I'm playing volleyball, and then I drive an hour home. Well, when do you learn how to do the basic stuff?
You don't.
Well,
and I think so many of us graduate from public school feeling like that. Like, okay, I'm an adult now, and nobody taught me how to make a personal budget. What do I do with my money once I can save some money? Like, what are some smart investment choices? What are the different things? How much is it going to cost for me to retire? How do I pay my taxes? How do I know how to avoid paying too much in tax? Like all of these adult things that we get thrown into adult life and have to figure out. And I think everybody has moments where they're like, why did they spend like a whole year on like Henry David Thoreau in English class, but didn't teach me this stuff that I actually need to know? I feel like almost all of us graduate from high school feeling like that.
And what I realized is like knowing how to cook like 10 basic meals that you know, even from like scratch or whatever, your quality of life goes up so much because it takes you a while to learn them and get good at them. But then once you're good at them, it's like you know it. And then it's like what maybe took you 2 hours before is taking you 20 minutes now. And you can like do it, cook it, eat it, be done like quick.
Yeah. Like my daughter, when she was 12, her friends thought she was like, and they would always be like, we want to be homeschooled too, because they thought she was like a genius. Because she's like, well, these bananas are starting to go brown, but I can make banana bread with them, and I can't eat it all at once, but I'll cut it in half and freeze half of it so I have some for later. And then she would like be telling them about like botany or like animal science, or she'd be telling them about neurology and hormones and like crazy stuff that she's learned in homeschool, because those are the things that she found exciting and interesting that she would go off and kind of study on her own. Or like I will give them a chance where they can kind of work on what they want for part of the week, and she would always do these reports on animals, and she learned so like a crazy amount of things about natural sciences, geography. She's learning about plants because she's reading about what kind of plants animals eat and why they avoid certain plants that are toxic. Just all this stuff she's learning. And so when she's just in normal conversations with her friends talking about it, they're just like, oh my God, she's a genius or something.
That's such a good idea, because my dad, that was like the one advice my dad always told me. He said, follow what you're interested in. Now, I was raised a little bit like a tomboy, because I've just noticed it's like a daddy's girl thing,
Yeah.
um,
Same for me.
yeah, but my dad.
For me, I didn't play sports, but I shoot guns, and I actually teach firearms instruction with my dad.
Yeah.
My dad and I are both firearms instructors, so we teach people how to shoot on the weekends together,
Oh,
and
that's
it's super
awesome.
fun. So another part of homeschool, all my kids learn firearm safety. So there you go.
Wow. But no, the interest, like my dad always told me, follow what you're interested in.
Yeah.
Like that is always what my dad said. He said, like, don't do what, like, there was no point, like, get really good at what you're interested in. Don't spend a lot of time learning what you're not interested in, because you're never going to be good at it. So it's like,
the reason we have the modern world is because of specialization. It's because of people specializing in something and getting super good at that thing and becoming an expert at that. So like I said, I don't feel like it makes any sense once they're high school age to just like hammer away at things that they're never going to care about and like force them to do it. Number one, it makes them just hate learning. It makes them just dread school, and they're like, ugh. So I'm like, look, you got to get your basics done. But all of my kids had their basics done by like 3rd or 4th grade. They could count, they could add, subtract, multiply, divide. They could read well. They could do some basic writing, like the reading, writing, arithmetic type of stuff our great grandparents grew up with. They had all that pretty nailed down by like 3rd or 4th grade. And after that, it was like, okay, clearly this one loves writing and researching, so I'm going to let her do that. She's like me. And then this other one, she doesn't give a hoot about that, but she likes math and like tech stuff. And then my son, he would do like video game design. There was a program we found that would teach them how to write code to create their own little video games and things like that. So he's learning like basic programming and stuff because he loves computers and computer science. So I would just totally be like, yeah, just get your basic stuff done. And then after that, you can take like the next hour or whatever to work on whatever, he's working on creating a video game. This one's working on her animal stuff. And they could do what they want. And then sometimes they would do things together and like work together on something.
That is so amazing. This sounds so amazing. I'm like, you have sold me on homeschool.
Yay. Good.
I was like, I didn't think I was smart enough to do it, but I'm like, because I just hated.
That's everyone's number one concern is that they're not smart enough to do it. But if you think about it this way, who's going to teach your kid how to hold their spoon and fork and feed themselves? Who teaches them to tie their shoe? Who potty trains them? Who teaches them how to button a shirt properly or how to buckle their seatbelt? You're already teaching your kids all kinds of stuff from the minute that they're born. You know what I mean? And even if they're in public school, you're teaching them things. So you can do it. And there's a ton of curriculum there. Like I said, there's homeschool co-ops. There's so many things to cover the gaps in what you're good at or what you know, that you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Wow. I'm not a genius, I promise.